Yeah, we're live. Hey, everybody. This is Dan from Japan. I'm actually in Japan now as we speak. Well, as I speak and you listen, I'm actually home. Not for long, though, but I am home. It's I'm a stranger to my family. Thanks for this blockchain business, but it's great to have everybody here this morning, day, evening, whatever it is on your end. And with us, of course, I have none other than Joe Armeanio. Say hi to everyone, Joe.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm, freshly vertical, but ready to roll through some questions.
Yeah. Joe looks like he is fresh out of dreamland. He's joined funny. Us. He's joined us from the domain of the Sandman. And so let's get into it. Oh, and he's got his Ergo wear. I just got my standard black. Actually spent quite a bit of time right before we started filming. I'm still using my Holly weird terms. Filming. What is the term? Podcasting. Since we're casting out of a pod. No, anyway, whatever. Since we started the video feed, there we go. Before we started the video feed, I was actually kind of trying to deleo this jacket. He's right back here. I don't want to put him back on this jacket right now because it was like a cat hair carpet. So took some time to take that off. I know some of our viewers are very particular about these things, so I just figured I wouldn't give you any OCD focus points. Anywho, so last week, well, we are still hard at work, bull market, bear market. The work at the EF continues. From my end, of course, I have been kind of debriefing with all the different connections I made through my trip and in regards to Ergo. I reconnected with the tier 1 exchange that I started a conversation with about listing Ergo. I also am speaking to several large projects that out of Turkey that could potentially be utilizing Ergo for their various on-chain activities. So that's really exciting. Also on the ecosystem fund boost development, the work continues. Again, it's a process, but things are looking good. We have a lot of we've completed a lot of the work that needed to be done for that particular ecosystem fund / boost package that we worked on, and hopefully within the next few months we'll be able to actually give more details and actually deploy it. Also, last but not least, we have been also working on the Ergo course I've been talking about. We're going to be doing with an accredited university. We are going to announce the course, I believe, on the 19th of next month, 19th and 20th of next month, towards right before Christmas. Again, really excited about this. And like I said, it's going to be an Ergo-centric course. Geared for business people looking to utilize blockchain. So yeah, lots of exciting stuff. And we got our mini summit happening, and we just finished Ergo Hack. And actually, Joe and I just finished filming a new episode of Ergo Pulse yesterday. So again, more good stuff coming at you. So what about you?
Well, I think probably the big news is going to be the 5.0 upgrade is going to be activated at 889, 856 block height. What's the block height right now? I have no idea. I haven't looked at the Explorer today, but it's counting down. And post, 5.0 going live, then it's time to start a community discussion regarding 6.0, which could potentially be a pretty broad update. There's been some community requests in terms of new features we could potentially support. There's the possibility of adding new cryptographic primitives. We could potentially, throw a fund out there and see if miners want to, come to some consensus about EIP 37 and the consensus algorithm, which, is kind of a patchwork job, but it works, and we got it live when we needed it. But there may be some further evolution there that people would like to see. And ultimately, we'll talk about various papers, sub-block protocols, what makes sense, what the pros and cons are in terms of trade-offs. Hopefully by the time 6.0 goes live at some undetermined date in the future, because we still need to have a discussion in terms of the scope of it. It would also be nice to have a cookbook for scaling solutions for our application developers out there. Even though we're going to kind of roll over a major update that's kind of been a work in progress since 2020, we move into the next stage in terms of the evolution of the platform. So it's exciting. I know that Alex wants to have some community chats about that. We're going to start a bi-weekly discussion, I believe, in terms of EIPs. That way we can catch up on a little bit of the technical debt that we have on that side in terms of what developers would like to support in creating standards in the ecosystem. So there's a lot to do, but it's pretty exciting to see that major reference client upgrade come into fruition, because that's been a long time coming.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one. Really excited about that. Thanks, Joe. So let's jump into the questions. And so the first one I'm going to jump to here is, actually, you know what? Just to follow up on the 5.0 update that you've been talking about, Joe, here's a good one from Augustus Kent, as always. Are there any potential downsides to 5.0, or is it all positives?
Everything has pros and cons. I would imagine the biggest positive there is going to just be throughput. There have been a couple of applications that I know, like Paideia and ErgoPad have been working on, that are somewhat dependent on this upgrade just due to performance benefits. No, I think the same thing is true for GetBlock. So it's needed. It should make things better. Miners are going to get the potential to have more efficiency in terms of block space, which translates into better payouts. So I do think that net it's going to be very positive in terms of, some older contracts. People may need to play with them to really get the benefits of 5.0. We'll see.
Excellent. All right. And so here's another one. So I'd like to see Ergo Games team on an episode of Ergo Pulse. Yeah, we'd love to. So if you guys have suggestions as to who you'd like to see on the next Ergo Pulse, please reach out to me or to Joe. And we'd be more than happy to take suggestions. We'd be more than happy to get ideas of new guests or who you'd like to see, and we'll do our best to make it happen. Okay, let's see. There was a question here. I have been asked to answer a couple of questions about Palmyra, so I'll do that right now. So, Dan from Japan, how will commodities be backed on the Zengate DEX? What you're referring to is the Palmyra, what we call the Palmyra Comdex. And so it's a commodity exchange with DEX functionality. Now, I must kind of explain it a little further. There's going to be DEX functionality on the platform, but not the entire platform is not a DEX. It's an exchange. It's a commodity exchange that uses tokenization through NFTs to tokenize and tokenize and therefore commoditize and futurize, basically creating commodities and futures contracts for semi-fungible commodities. Will they be backed? Well, they're actually backed with the physical commodity. To create the commodity and to list it on the Palmyra platform, the commodity creator will have to provide physical proof of commodity, which is basically going to start the traceability chain of the commodity as well, because Palmyra has built-in traceability. And also the commodity is going to be backed by certification from the regulatory agencies that regulate the trade within that particular region. We're going to have more information actually on that in the next week. We're going to have some major announcements in next weekend. Explain to you a little further exactly which agencies we're working with and how it's going to be done. But essentially, it is backed by the actual physical commodity, proof of origin and proof of basically proof of I guess you could call it existence, which is what is going to be backing the actual NFT, because essentially the commodities on the exchange are not just made, or on the platform are not just made to be traded, right? That is an aspect of it, and that's one of the user archetypes on the Palmyra exchange, on the Palmyra platform. But Palmyra is meant to be the first physically settled tokenized commodity exchange, tokenized commodity DEX. What that means is the commodities that are traded on Palmyra are meant to kind of end their life, or their end of their final destination essentially is the buyer, is actually the person or the company that is going to be purchasing that is going to receive the actual goods. Right. And so, again, we will be explaining a lot of that in some explainer videos we got coming out. We have a UI UX video that's already in the can that we're just putting some finishing touches on, that Sam Lambert, my co-founder, has done a really good job in explaining and showing how the whole user experience works. And again, I believe it's already next week. We're going to be starting with some major updates and some AMAs and all these different different information, and all these different videos and content coming out. So please stay tuned, and you won't be disappointed. All right, let's go to another one. And let's see, there was another here. Okay. Let's see. All right. So Adam Joseph is asking, speaking of EIPs, how can the community learn more about current proposals, and what can they do to help push through proposals they support if they're not a miner?
Sure. So
why don't you grab that one, Joe?
Sure. So EIPs, or Ergo improvement protocols, are basically contributions to the GitHub where somebody comes in with an idea, and generally The goal is to create a standard or a change in basically how Ergo operates. Usually, you kind of get into technical discussions. One great way that community members can engage is going to be on ergoforum.org. That's a nice community-driven forum type website where we can have ongoing discussions, discuss, debate, refine. When you get into the EIPs themselves, you usually get into more the implementation side. And that's certainly something that hopefully will reflect the discussions and ultimately some form of consensus in the community. Anybody can hop into ergoforum.org or onto our GitHub and propose an EIP. That's something that I would welcome, from people in the ecosystem, from developers, from miners. That's the goal is to kind of get a discussion going, get collective community mind share, and then at some point you have the ability to pass that to miners to vote in terms of whether to support that or not. Basically, we support a type of block-based voting where miners that go to their pool or are mining solo will run a certain reference client, and whenever that reference client hits a block, some of the parameters of the node configuration are recorded by the network, and then within, so let's say a certain threshold or above a certain threshold, changes can be activated, and that's ultimately a good sign. So an example 5.0, we had voting a couple of months ago in terms of whether that's something miners would like to support or not.
Awesome. Okay. And there's actually it's a good question about working with exchanges. So Not Mork asks, what do sexes struggle with most when integrating Ergo into their platforms? What can the community devs do to help the process? Is there an SDK for sexes or large entities to manage wallet nodes, etc.? So basically, just like with any, it's actually kind of the same issue with pretty much any L1 that integrates with a centralized exchange. Integrating an L1, a completely new blockchain, is it just time consuming. A lot easier than, say, launching an ERC20 token. And a lot of times exchanges larger exchanges are kind of built and geared towards integrating stuff that's easier, which is an ERC20. And ERC20 can be integrated within, like a few days to maybe a week into an exchange that already has an Ethereum, on it. So basically, those get prioritized a lot of times over an L1 chain. Or a mainnet chain, unless it's like a huge one, unless there's another, all of a sudden we have a new Cardano, multi-billion-dollar market cap, just pop out of nowhere. And, that's something that they will prioritize, because that's basically going to make them money with transaction fees, with traffic and all that good stuff. But unless you're a top 10 mainnet blockchain that's being integrated, a lot of times you get deprioritized over behind the ERC20 tokens. So that's a major point of I guess a major pain point when it comes to being a mainnet blockchain like Ergo. Also, there was we had to write a couple of pieces of software that are specific for integrating into some exchanges. Some did not have the capability to integrate our wallet as it was before. So we wrote a couple of modules to be able to support that. And actually now the process should be a lot easier for future exchanges to integrate. But again, it all boils down to what the priorities are of the particular exchange and what the backlog is on that exchange. Because again, a lot of these exchanges have a really long backlog. So, they want to list somebody, they already entered into a contract to list somebody, but there is, 30, 40 tokens that they want to list, and there's probably another 10 to 15 mainnet chains that they want to list. And they just have to kind of go, it's like, okay, what's going to make us most money? Like this. Least effort, most money, which is, it's a common business practice. So what can the community devs do to help the process? Is there an SDK or for Sexus or large entities to manage wallets, nodes, etc.? So Joe, what became of the of what we wrote for when we were integrating with Huobi?
Well, the bottom line is they prioritized a lot of projects over us because it, number one, made them money faster, and number two, a lot of those projects support the smart chain that they LARP with. But that's becoming a common thing with a lot of exchanges where they try to create their own pseudo blockchain and then prioritize projects on the new smart chain that's, kind of owned and managed by the exchange. And, oftentimes if you look at like how to participate in validation and that type of thing, it's really not possible. So I wouldn't necessarily call it decentralized. I would just call it a product line. Unfortunately, the largest thing we struggle with for the most part is cost. The barrier of entry to a lot of listings is quite ridiculous, in my opinion, in terms of supporting open source software. They do have costs, right? They do have server costs. They do have some development cost and some testing, obviously, because they're running something that obviously is a security risk. So you do want pretty good standards and practices in terms of integration and review. But a lot of the time, if you go to some exchanges and you look at the most recent stuff that they list, you really have to ask the question, where's the due diligence? Like, who's the person that's approving some of this garbage? That in my opinion, it's a terrible practice because, it tends to basically expose users to, let's say, products or tokens that, in my opinion, are high risk, and in many cases probably are not so survivable or well developed, but they made the cost of entry, so they're there. Being a fair launch layer one is painful dealing with exchanges because of the upfront costs that they expect, even though let's say they're going to sit in the middle and make a trading fee, and every time there's a withdrawal there's a fee. Usually they'll have a tendency to allocate most of the billables into the marketing fee and say we list for free, which I guess it's needed. I'm not against paying for a little bit of marketing or paying for let's say a development budget, but yeah, sometimes it gets into just, in my opinion, ridiculous. I'll use the example of FTX because, well, they're kind of bankrupt. When you're talking 1.5 to $2 million for a listing of open source software, and then the desire to have 20 to $50 million of daily volume, which, obviously we would have to fake some numbers there and get some shady trading practices. For a small foundation, the answer is just no. That would deplete our entire development budget. Unfortunately, when they have the ability to white glove their own assets, probably at little to no cost because they're involved in bringing it to market, it's just scammy as shit, if you ask me. So I would recommend people out there really pay attention to this idea of, decentralized exchange blockchains, because there's just a huge attack vector there where, if I'm bringing it to market, I'm the market maker. There's just too much power and no transparency. So it's dangerous, in my opinion. That's unpopular to say, especially given my position, but I don't give a shit. Just would like to see retail treated better.
Yeah, well, look, again, the bottom line here is numbers go up, right? And it's a symptom of a new market. Because the crypto market is on the grand scheme of things is pretty damn new, a little over 10 years, and when you have a market like this, just like with prior markets, like say when the .com market was still in its boom back in late 90s, early 2000s, you had the same thing, and which has caused the .com boom and the .com crash, which was anything that had to do with the .com, they would just incorporate, build a shitty website, and then just IPO, and the numbers go up, and they would get, and then they would do IPO, they would be on the stock exchange, the numbers would go up, people would dump money into it, and then of course when the time came to say, oh, by the way, so what do you guys do exactly? That's when everybody just started, going ape shit and like, oh, wait a second. Oh, well, I don't know what they do. I'm going to pull my money right out of that. So it's the same with the pump and dump coins and tokens, or tokens mostly. They get the volume in, they get the trading fees in, numbers go up, and it's just easy because it was a lot easier back in, say, the .com boom to build a .com that really didn't do much, but launch an IPO at the right time with the right type of investors and just make bank. If you guys ever saw like the movie Boiler Room, for example, that was actually kind of spot on for the time. I was there. I was there in that environment, where at a certain point, I mean, literally you can take a can of shit, put it online and make a website for it, and people would dump money into it. And as long as you go IPO and as long as numbers go up, you're good, but in the end it's just nothing. It's vapor. So every new industry suffers that. And I think it'll just, it's a symptom of infancy. And I think it will be, it will go away once we mature more. For the foreseeable future, I think it's going to continue. But as Joe said, I mean, we are working with centralized exchanges. We are going to make more listings. Are we going to? Yes. Do we want to? No, yeah. we want decentralized. We want this stuff to decentralize. We're forced into it basically because they dominate the volume that is out there for trading. So we have to work with them, and we will work with them. But do we want to? No, we want to be on DEXs. We want the stuff to be decentralized. We want the mission of the fundamentals of what the P2P cash movement, the blockchain movement was founded on, to transfer into this, because we're just kind of centralizing it, re-centralizing decentralized stuff. It's kind of a regression, and then you also have, like Joe said, you got these white glove treatments for specific chains, because, oh, by the way, we're in exchange. We also have our own chain. It doesn't matter. It's a freaking copy pasta of Ethereum every single time. It's like, oh, well, we're just faster and cheaper. I'm like, yeah, because you're more centralized and you're shittier, and you just kind of like took the fast stuff and put it in, and then you can launch projects on it. But like all of this, security, infosec attack vectors, QA, all these things that you kind of need to do alongside of it, which a lot of times slows it down, is, oh, by the way, you can make it faster, but it's going to get hacked to shit. You don't want that. It's going to have to be slower. You're going to have to trade off speed, but you're going to get yourself a more secure blockchain. A lot of these guys don't care. They just want to pump out projects. They want to pump out. They want numbers to go up. So that's just the environment that we live in.
It's revenue and cash flow, unfortunately, and actually, in my general attitude has shifted quite a bit. I mean, that's always been something that's annoyed me, let's say. But, post FTX, I think that really the proof needs to be in terms of the exchange, that they're not running some shady business, because we've certainly seen, let's say massive damage to, retail or, different communities that were exposed in that case. And I know since there have been a couple of minor exchanges that have shut down. So, ultimately, I think that the pressure should be on them in terms of, transparency, in terms of assets, liabilities. Then there is absolutely zero transparency around the listing process and how that happens. And to be honest, that's why it's gamed in many cases for the benefit of insiders. But I hope that we see better practices in this industry. I have my doubts because it's such a profitable vector. And to be honest, the best actors that I've dealt with, for the most part, are small, regional type exchanges, because they're trying to build more local value and create more local community. Now, certainly there are some big ones that are like leading the way. And you can usually tell because they don't have their own smart chain, and their risk products are much more reasonable. I think Kraken, in terms of the US, is definitely a leader in that space, and I appreciate that they actually do support some privacy focused projects like Monero. But in terms of global, things are really centralizing with the absence of FTX, unfortunately. So, our industry that's decentralized is moving more and more towards just gatekeeping.
Yeah. Well, I like to be a skeptical optimist. I'd like to think that we will get past it, but it will just take some time.
Mm-hmm. It needs to probably be demanded by users. You vote with your money. That's just how business works. So I would recommend every user out there really pay attention to who you interact with and support the practices that protect you.
Right. So we actually have a question here. Let's see. So Gia Quirao says, I often hear you guys emphasize decentralization and open source. If somebody wants to develop centralized software on Ergo's chain, would they be welcome? I mean, look, as Alex said, take as much control or ownership of Ergo as you want. It's you. We're not gatekeepers here. We're not going to say, no, you can't build here. We don't like you. You want to build here, you build here. Okay. If you are using Ergo, as for on-chain computation, you are by definition using a decentralized product. So you're already decentralized. You can't re-centralize Ergo. I mean, you could, but it'll take like a meteor. We're a decentralized blockchain. So can you build centralized software? I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if you can build centralized software, even if you wanted to. You can build something that's not open source, which I mean, we're not going to stop you, but we don't like it. But that's.
I've been asked this question many, many times. And here's my answer. Number one, yeah, it's an open network. Okay. So anybody can come in and build anything they want, and no, they don't need permission, which is kind of the point of these type of systems. But I often talk about assumptions, right? Because blockchains are basically networks that are built on cryptographic assumptions, and cryptographic assumptions are basically assumptions of honesty within certain parameters, right? And so when you get into centralized services, you have to add extra assumptions because you have extra potential, vectors of control that most people don't really look at. An example, the biggest problem with FTX, apparently there was a back door where everything that moved in moved out, right? You have the ability to build that into a wallet. And if there's no transparency in terms of that software, that's a risk. Now you can say, okay, but it's a popular thing, and oh, look, here's Tom Brady and here's the name on the stadium and yada, yada, yada. It looks very trustworthy. There can still be a back door, right? When you get a centralized server that's, running centralized software, you have the ability to expose some of your data, and depending on who you are, you may not want that, right? So it does add additional, let's say, trust that needs to be talked about, because we're talking about trustless systems, and some people, but that's okay. It's an assumption, and I think that when people are interacting in these type of systems, they need to be very clear in terms of assumption of control. That's kind of the basis of self-custody and self-responsibility. And when you kind of bring that to a community level, I think transparency there is critical. An example, we had a developer come on and build Ergo Flip, which is kind of a little coin flip game. Great to see. Do I support that? Absolutely. It's proof of work for a developer in a way, where we put time, effort, energy into building something. But that type of transparency in terms of how the back end of the system operates, is critical. And if you look at something like that, where let's say I build a game that's essentially gambling, is there any potential for proprietary software to put in house advantages that they may obfuscate and not pass on to the community? And then as a result, there's kind of a, let's say, trust is exploited. Absolutely. So am I against it? No, I've told everybody you're always welcome to build. And the beauty of having open source is you have all of this mind share and knowledge to learn from, grow from. But I'll never not talk to users about assumptions, because that's kind of the point of these systems, is understanding assumptions of control.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's all about that. And I think Mr. Agar, okay, I know to say a name. I know, but I'm not going to.
Yes,
it's an ongoing gag. Yeah, I have to listen. It's in acting. It's called making an artistic choice. Okay, and I made an artistic choice to be the one that mixes up that name every single time. Edgar Gagger. Anyway, it's close enough. As Mr. A says in the comments here, I'm sure you guys can see them, as to answer Jiqui Rao, there are a few closed source projects already on Ergo. They do exist with the other projects. Yeah, there are. Again, we're not gatekeepers here. We're not gonna magically appear at your place of development and say no, 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 don't touch Ergo, go away.
Mhm.
You can. It's there. It's public. It's yours. It belongs to you, and what you do with it is up to you. If you're talking about community sentiment, if you're talking about personal opinion, that's something else. And again, like Joe said, he'll always talk to you about what he wants to talk to you about. But is he going to, force his beliefs on you? If
No.
he's not, and if you're using the chain, if you're not doing something malicious, then that's your choice. That's your choice. What do you want to do with your devs or with your development? Actually, Rico Stans just wanted to say that. Also, just want to say thanks, Dan and Joe, for everything you guys do in the space, even though prices are low and this bear market sucks. You guys stay the course. Consistency is huge. Thank you very much. We really, really appreciate the kind words. And it is all about consistency. That is why we're here every week. That is why we're putting out content every week. That's why Joe was doing his updates every week. And because one of the worst things you can do, especially in a bear market, but actually at any point with your project, is to have people worry that there's no news coming from what they consider to be the heart, right? I believe that the Ergo Foundation is one of the hearts. It's not the heart of the Ergo community, of the Ergo project. I think there's many different epicenters that exist. But a lot of people look towards the EF and to us to really just show, proof of life, because it's really important in this type of market, and that's why we're here, because we're showing you that we're working. The bear market, bull market, whatever market, we're working. We're doing our job every single day. We are here for you, and we're here for Ergo, and we're here to progress, and we will come out on top. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and I think when is going to be pretty damn soon.
Yeah. The word FUD is thrown a lot in the space, like fear, uncertainty, and doubt. In my opinion, when it comes to fear, you can't do much, right? Someone's going to be fearful. They're going to be fearful. They're going to find their own ghosts and worry about them, right? And the same is true with doubt, where, if their mind goes in that direction, they're going to find things to think about. But uncertainty you can work with. And basically, you do that just through information and education, so people can learn. In terms of fear, that usually is dependent on a lot of things that are beyond my ability to control. And if somebody has a lot of doubt, usually they don't trust me anyway, so that's okay. But in terms of uncertainty, I think we can always have, good conversations and talk about what to do, how to improve, how to grow.
Yep. So we got a nice question about the inner workings of Erg. Beginner question: how can you be confident that after all the Erg will be mined, that the fees will be enough to cover the validators miners' profitability? Why don't you take that one, Joe?
All right. There's a couple of things to discuss here, and this is an open question that you can ask to any proof of work chain, right? And the most common answer you get in the space is, well, what we've done is we've kicked the can down the road to where I'll be dead, right? And that's somehow a suitable answer, which I think is kind of a cop-out, but okay. In my opinion, the way to create sustainable proof of work is through multiple streams of miner revenue, okay? To where I do think that just the pure fee model is going to be an issue. And I think we'll see that not just if Ergo, that was its only revenue source for miners, but almost any proof of work network, I think that's going to fail, right? And so in Ergo, we have, sure, the fee aspect. We also have the aspect of storage rent, where the network slowly digests old, UTXO dust and charges a miner fee to create some additional sustainable rewards for miners. Then we also have this interesting and new emerging idea of kind of multi-asset mining, where miners have the ability to mine native tokens, and what they end up doing is actually creating a swap on the back end, to where technically they're still kind of paying ERG to miners as the mining reward, but they're getting a token that's coming on top of the network. And we also have this concept of Babel fees that is slowly being implemented. And so in a way, it's kind of interesting to watch this potential of ERG becoming more of a base currency that's potentially kind of buried in the back end of the network, that is being swapped by all of these assets on top. That is one vector that's just interesting to watch, because if the ecosystem does grow and become pretty vibrant and get a lot of valuable products, we may see the use of ERG be more like a base currency, and less of a it'll still be the coin of the network, but in a way, you could look at cryptocurrencies as a type of software license that's needed to execute transactions on a network. And it'll be interesting to watch that vector develop. One thing that I do like quite a lot about ERG is the ability for miners to make adjustments on the fly. That's not something that I think the mining community as a whole has really realized or taken responsibility for. But that ability to expand block sizes, to adjust some of the fees in terms of network parameters, will assist in terms of creating an equilibrium of mining rewards. Now, I know a lot of miners out there are in a state of pain because of all the excess capacity that kind of got dumped off Ethereum. And that's something that we're still working towards. I do know that my thinking was always going to be there's going to be a period of consolidation where, miners mine kind of, to the lowest price that's sustainable. And you can kind of look at that as, 95% of the workforce got fired and went home with their tools, and now they're competing against each other on a wage basis, and that drives wages down. That's kind of coincided with a lot of external drama in, not only the macro markets, but then kind of implosions of people doing shitty business in the crypto industry. So that hasn't helped with profitability either. But I do think that we'll get through it. And at some point, that will hit a point of consolidation, hit some equilibrium, and then potentially move back in the direction of profitability. But right now, that's a hard business to be in.
Yeah, I actually wanted to kind of touch on what you were talking about. Well, just really briefly, the concept of the IMPO, the initial mining pool offering, where you would basically mine ERG and also be mining the a native token that was minted on the Ergo blockchain, and essentially getting rewards in the or earning the token. And that's a really cool concept, because it hasn't been tried yet, not to my knowledge, on a proof of work blockchain. It was I believe it was actually invented on Cardano as ISPO, initial stake pool offering. I'm not sure if it was. I think it was either invented or it's one of the first ones that did it. Where you would stake with a certain staking pool, and then instead of your 8 rewards, you would earn the token that is basically going that is going to be debuted. So that's a really cool concept. That's actually something that we have been discussing at Zengate, is potentially trying out in the future when we do have a token for Palmyra or any of our products. Again, this is just talk at this point. There is no token. There is no solid plans to do this, but there's definitely a lot of interest. And if we can't figure out the mechanics behind it, it would be great to utilize that concept on Ergo. So we have a lot of questions, but we have just a little bit of time, and I think that there was a good question, kind of a more of a the philosophical question, or the more kind of a crypto versus legacy market or legacy finance type of question. Here it is. Okay, so from Casual Dead. Yeah, Casual Dead. My eyes aren't very good, actually. Can we at some point manage to circumvent banks entirely? To buy crypto, to get a paycheck, to pay taxes? What needs to change for that to happen? Can we circumvent traditional banks? In theory, yes, of course. In theory, I believe it's possible. In practice, well, just like going from trading, and again, it's not exactly the 100% perfect analogy, but between the time people were paying with seashells to the time people actually started using banks, a lot of time lapsed and a lot of infrastructure had to be built up. Of course, crypto is not trading seashells. Well, some is, but we hope that the true crypto P2P cash is a lot more sophisticated than that. Still, or blockchain. In fact, we're not just talking about crypto here. I mean, we're talking about paying taxes. We're talking about sovereign identity, things like that. If you're talking about just this kind of system, this kind of paradigm shift, it will happen when there's infrastructure. All of this needs infrastructure. You need infrastructure for government agencies to accept payments in cryptocurrencies, and immutable ledger support for these entities. The tax department or the Ministry of Finance or whatever it is in your country is going to need to integrate with a blockchain. They're going to have to accept crypto payments. The whole taxation system is going to have to be reworked and rewritten so that it accommodates these types of payments. It would be a hell of a lot more efficient. In fact, one of the concepts that I actually had for years back when we just started working with Georgia at IOG was a automated taxation system where if somebody was utilizing a crypto payments network, the taxes would automatically be calculated and submitted for them to the tax authority, so that in the end of the year they didn't have to go through this big process. It was already done for them. It's already automated, right? It's already in the system. But that needs infrastructure. A lot of infrastructure, different moving parts from different agencies need to be aligned for that to work. The same with banks. Can we eliminate banks, traditional banks? Yes, we can. But what is going to come in their stead? Because you got to understand, the banks are not just about the type of currency that they use. Banks are a big institution, a kind of a time-tested institution because of the peace of mind they provide, or at least sometimes the illusion of the peace of mind they provide to their customers, right? It's stability. It's being able to say you got a problem with your account, you go to the bank and you talk to somebody at the bank. Hey, I got a problem with my account. I got some frivolous activity on my account. I want to take out a loan. I mean, people are people. People are going to want to talk to other people. And until that infrastructure is also in place, where you maybe have a decentralized bank, right? So you have a decentralized institution with, just real people there that can help other people, because not everybody's going to be super crypto savvy, and then people are going to need help. Infrastructure. And again, I can go on and on about this. I won't, but I'll give maybe Joe a little bit of time to state his opinion on this. Yeah, my main thing is infrastructure. It can happen. When will it happen? Well, it's going to take a while, I believe. Many, many years. What do you think, Joe?
Biggest choke point right now is ramps, meaning points of conversion, like say inputs and outputs. Right now, if you want to take one currency and have it inputted into, let's say, a cryptocurrency, that's a pretty difficult process to do without interacting with a central entity. And the same is true with outputs. Now, there have certainly been a lot of somewhat interesting kind of P2P frameworks that have spun up. That is one thing that I kind of like about what the Monero community has done with, local Monero. I know the Bitcoin community has kind of done pretty well too, in terms of having alternative ramps. But then, is that a perfect process? No. In terms of counter-economic tools, I do think that is something that if local communities or organizations take responsibility, certainly they can develop some pretty unique counter-economic frameworks using these type of tools. And the reality is most people, let's say in the lower middle class, are familiar with some kind of side hustle where they do some service to the community in order to make basic ends meet. And, there are potentials to create organizations or DAOs or, local exchange trading systems or other forms of counter-economic, let's just say, groups that could potentially, create kind of community resilience and local value. So I do think that on the counter-economic side, there's a tremendous let's say area to explore. In terms of like DeFi, Ergo is kind of unique because we potentially can support, let's say on the application level anyway, type of regulated DeFi. But again, what you'd be doing is you'd be working with some external servers that would need to run whatever kind of compliance they need to run. It shouldn't be a base network problem. I think that's a very dangerous and ultimately stupid approach, to have that on the consensus layer itself, put it on the application layer and let all of the users know these are the assumptions you need to have if you're interacting with this application, right? And then on the flip side, if you get into like DarkFi or DeFi with more privacy, with greater privacy protection and assumptions you could make there, Ergo can support that too. So we're actually pretty flexible in terms of all of the different frameworks. In terms of circumventing, let's say, the current economic system, theoretically, I think even now, if somebody really wants to do enough work, they could now. That would take a lot of responsibility. I would love to see more counter-economic frameworks and communities spinning up and, people kind of having more local control and power. Right now, the global economy is kind of showing the fragility of having, power spread so distant from people's local environment to where one supply chain failure can create, massive issues. So local resiliency is great. I in a way, it's kind of like an embodiment of UTXO itself. It's all about managing local state.
Yep, absolutely. I think we're kind of on the same page from different sides of it. Me and Joe on this. When I mean infrastructure, that's exactly what I was talking about. Right now, on ramp, off ramps are still kind of shitty. We need a lot more of that. We need a lot more, in between before we actually get to straight crypto payments. What I was talking about, a world where you don't need to do an on-off ramp because everything is done with crypto payments. That's a world essentially without fiat, but it's possible. Yes. Is it, how easily is that? How far in the future is that? I think that's pretty far in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The difficulty is, if you look at that, then essentially whatever that ramping system would be replacing banks, and that's not something that central powers, for the most part, are going to be on board with. So to some degree, we're going to have to find creative solutions to build around them. I think in some emerging areas where the banking infrastructure is lacking, that might make sense. But
that's why emerging markets are so big for blockchain. Is because in emerging markets, you would have actually the most traction because of their inability to kind of fill in the gaps with legacy infrastructure. Why is El Salvador buying Bitcoin? Well, because have you looked at their fiat currency? It's not doing too good. Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Joe. I think there's a lag because we're in different parts of the world.
No, we'll see. In areas where the existing legacy system is really well developed, in a way, I think counter economic frameworks are probably going to be what's required. In terms of areas that are still developing, there's an opportunity to basically embrace a new technology that's more performant. And then, I guess many people hope that as emerging areas, basically adopt better tools, what we'll see over time, and this won't happen overnight, is a certain trend in terms of performance and efficiency in those areas that have adopted alternative tools to the existing tools. And then hopefully, there's a pivot in that direction, right? But the reality is there's a ton of kickback because, it is true that you have a lot of just, old, well-entrenched, established systems that are backed by a great depth of, regulation and laws that often they paid for, but probably not popular to talk about that. So that's the game. Let's see how it plays out. Either way, I would say the counter economic side is important when looking at that equation. So even if let's say 10% of the world were to say, okay, let's try to really adopt alternative counter economic systems, that's a tremendous amount of value and a huge user base.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we had for today. Thanks for stopping by, San Diego, and you stay classy and all that. And so we'll see you next week. And so from all of us in the decentralized Ergo studio, here's to all of you signing off.
Have a good one.